Welcome back to episode 6. So, we've seen so far how the previous finance minister, Monsieur Turgot, even if he had the most noble of intentions, he was not able to reduce the debt, public debt, or even cut the expenses from the government expenses. Since he was an ultra liberal, he wanted to impose less taxes. However, he chose to tax all the goods that came from the earth, the land, like, for example, all the agricultural goods, the minerals, all of those would be taxed. But that left a giant segment of the population that would not pay taxes. And in a world where already the nobles and the nobility do not pay taxes, well, everything will fall on the backs of the peasants, the peasant population, leaving out merchants and other business people. So Turgot was a man that had high moral values, and he would not resort to declare bankruptcy or even try to ask the king, "Sire, we need to reduce the expenses, the budget." But however, that was not possible. Following Turgot's dismissal in 1776, a new successor was appointed. Cluny Denouy arrived in confidence and remarked, "I know it's said that the finance minister never dies in office," implying that they're quickly dismissed. He added, "But you'll see that I will prove this rumor wrong." The government needed money, and Cluny Denouy came up with a brilliant idea. They invented the lottery. It seemed like a perfect solution. People paid to buy tickets, and a small portion of the proceeds would be given as a prize. It was a great plan. We are in the 18th century France, a deeply corrupt and struggling nation. Still, many people criticized the new idea, calling it shameful that the state would profit by taking advantage of people's gambling habits. However, after the lottery, Cluny Denouy had no other ideas. The lottery turned out to be insufficient. The budget gap only grew bigger, and the minister found himself in a tough spot. But he wouldn't have to answer for it, because just 5 months after taking office, he suddenly died. Picture the political satirical songs making fun of Cluny Denouy. He promised not to die in office, and the songwriters were all too eager, probably singing Cluny Denouy still holding on, though his career is as dead as his promises. Reflecting on his choice of Cluny Denouy, the king remarked, "I think we made another mistake." Next, a new economist arrives, but what he claims is the miracle solution, Jacques Necker, a Swiss from Geneva. He was the complete opposite of Turgot. His plan was simple: taxes, state intervention in the economy. That's how we'll fix everything. However, there was still the issues that Necker was Protestant, so he couldn't be made a minister. Instead, they made him director general of the ministry and put a figurehead at the minister's place. In reality, Necker was the one calling the shots. Necker started to put his ideas into practice, focusing on taxes, state intervention, and economic reforms. But then a new problem arose. The American Revolution broke out in 1776, and England found itself in immediate difficulty. Why does it matter? Well, England and France had always been enemies. A few years earlier, England had won the 7 Years' War and taken the French colonies. The French saw an opportunity to get revenge, and they took it. What's often overlooked is that the American Revolution, which marked the birth of a democracy, won its war against England with the help of the French monarchy. France sent fleets and troops to support the Americans, and in the end, the Americans won their war. It was also because of the indomitable spirit of George Washington and the American citizens who took up arms and marched to defeat the British army. However, France gave a significant contribution. Louis XVI France officially entered the war in 1778, but the key turning point came in 1781 with the American victory at Yorktown. The war formally ended in 1783 with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. When the Americans won and the United States became independent, it was an enormous victory for France as well. France helped secure a major victory for the American colonies against Britain, their long-time enemy. Louis XVI was more loved and popular than ever. If anyone had said, in 9 years they'll cut your head off in the square, no one would have believed it. Naturally, there was a problem. France had incurred in huge expenses from the war, and with the public debt reaching shocking levels. Necker, as finance minister, faced the pressing issue of raising funds for the French monarchy's finances. In response, he introduced a financial innovation by selling government bonds that offered not a lump sum at maturity, but an immediate annuity, which guaranteed regular payments to the bondholders for life. Here's how it worked. People who bought these government bonds paid a lump sum upfront in exchange for a steady yearly payment for the rest of their lives. Necker, mindful of the risks involved, carefully based the annuity amounts on life expectancy, aiming to balance the payouts with the potential lifespan of the bondholders. While working on this, Necker had another idea. The concept of a lottery had struck with him, so he decided to mix the two. These government bonds, now called life annuities, will be sold to the public for a fixed price, let's say $10,000. Most of them would offer a yearly payment of $500 for life. But there was a twist. Some of these bonds would be drawn in a lottery, and the lucky winners would receive a massive annuity, $500,000 per year. Showing, for example, Necker came out with a plan to combine the government bonds with a lottery, and at first it worked incredibly well. The idea was simple. People would buy these bonds, which were tied to lifetime annuities, and some of them would even be chosen through a lottery to receive much larger payouts. It quickly became a success. However, there was a problem. The bonds were based on life expectancy, and at the time life expectancy was starting to increase. The discovery of the smallpox vaccine, for example, added around 3 years to the average life expectancies of Europeans. As a result, the speculation began to lose money. But that wasn't the only issue. To make these bonds more attractive, people were allowed to resell them. Banks took advantage of this and started buying up the bonds only to resell them for a profit. The problem was that there was no clear rule stating that the buyer's age should be factored into the resale. So the banks began selling the bonds to families who registered them in the names of newborn babies. This move ended up backfiring. In just a few years, it contributed to a deeper financial crisis for the Treasury, but at the time things seemed fine. People were buying the bonds, their value was going up. Necker was a magician. We paid for the American war without raising taxes. Necker examined the figures and realized just how much the debt had grown, but no one else knew. In an absolute monarchy, the government controlled the press, and any journalist who spoke too freely risked imprisonment in the Bastille. The public remained unaware. Only Necker alone in this situation knew about the situation. And at a certain point, he goes to the king and he tells them, "Your Majesty, we must cut spending. The court's expenses, the golden pensions, they must be reduced." Necker, however, understood something that is not always acknowledged today. Some argue that cutting high pensions and political costs is pointless because they are insignificant compared to the public debt. While these measures may not be enough to balance the budget, they had symbolic value. They signaled shared sacrifice and restraint, creating a sense of unity. Yet, in reality, the lavish court expenses, the same ones that outraged the people and fueled hatred toward Marie Antoinette and her circle, made up only 1% of the state's budget. There simply wasn't much to cut. Necker had tried what seemed like a miraculous plan, but in the end, it did not work. The revenue wasn't enough, and the budget deficit kept growing, more frightening than ever. So, like many before him, Necker was dismissed. It was seen once again as a failure. They really tried them on. You may see the extraordinary creativity, though, of the experimentation with the economic plans. Everybody has their own theory, and everybody is applying their own theories. What really strikes me is that in a world, in a France where it's so indebted, where they're so in trouble, they're willing to test on anyone that has an idea. And of course, each idea, even if desperate, well, they will all say, let's try it on, and let's test your hypothesis and see if it works. In a world where there's no other solutions, well, they say, what do we have to lose? And in the meantime, though, expenses keep on piling on, and the public debt keeps on rising. And even if we want to cut deep into government expenses and golden pensions and royal expenses, we will still even make a dent into our public debt. Therefore, it's all for nothing. Another economist has been at the chopping block, not literally on the chopping block, at least not yet, but has been fired, as we should say in our modern term. Well, this is all for episode 6, and thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time for episode 7. We're getting closer and closer and closer to the edge of the French Revolution, so stay tuned. Thank you very much for following up. Bye.